this Ramos guy think he is anyway? I mean, I know it's not the top story, but I just think it gives a mindset of how media people can get carried away with themselves. Good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary on this Thursday, brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. I don't want to let this story go by because I think that this is a snapshot for the American people to understand how some people in front of the camera feel and view themselves as to how important they actually are, that they can go out of bounds and demand an answer to what they are passionate about. This Ramos guy now is demanding a sit-down interview with Donald Trump. That is not professional, okay? That's not how it works, okay? And he probably won't get one anytime soon. What unfolded at the press conference the other day, we need to understand, is not the way formal press conferences are handled. How come all reporters don't do that? Who is Jeb Bush to lower any kind of, or render any kind of judgment on Donald Trump when he wasn't there? Okay? Now, look, formal press conferences are put together for the benefit of the people. The people want to hear what the candidate has to say. It is the job of the reporters to be respectful within their own profession and to wait to be called on and then ask the question and also follow up to get the answer that they want. This guy Ramos blasts in, and he's now criticizing advocacy journalism. Excuse me? He wasn't asking questions of Trump. He was making statements telling Trump that you can't deport 11 million people. I have no respect for the guy at this point. I don't think he deserves an interview with Donald Trump. And then he gets into the name calling. And now I understand he's being referred to as the Walter Cronkite of the Hispanic and Latino community when it comes to journalism. He's no Walter Cronkite. This is totally out of bounds and unprofessional. And this guy, I think, is scarring his network. And, of course, the CEO comes out and blasts Trump. Well, anybody with a brain knows that, you have to be in the realm of decency. And I think that this guy was totally out of bounds, and now he's trying to justify his position. And because of his ethnicity, is he more qualified to ask a question or get an answer than any other reporter? I don't think so. I think that every reporter in that room or credentialed reporter at the network level is qualified to ask the exact same question as the person that's sitting right next to him. They may have personal experiences that might give them some insight to it, but the fact is the question, whatever it might be. And attacking Trump, and that's exactly what it was. I'll guarantee you, if Bush had been handled like this, or if Obama had been handled like this, the allies would be coming out left and right supporting the person in question. And I think this Ramos guy is totally out of bounds. He's totally off the wall. In my genre, I believe he's lost a great deal of credibility. In the meantime, there's the Joe Biden story. This is really a tough one. The loss of a son is as traumatic as it gets, and clearly the vice president is dealing with this. And there was a phone call to the DNC yesterday that was supposed to be, I don't know whether it was supposed to be private or not. There's different reports out there about it. But it was supposed to be about the Iranian nuclear deal, and someone asked him a question about running, and it got public. And clearly he is emotionally torn on what to do. I think we can all come to the conclusion that Joe Biden believes that he can run the country. And I believe he can run the country. I believe there's a number of people that could run the country and function as the president of the United States and be very effective at it. No one can argue with Joe Biden's experience, his dedication of his life to public service, and the commitment that he has made over the years to this profession of public service. 8 years as vice president, 30 years on Senate Foreign Relations, and everything he's done before that. I mean, it's just a lifelong achievement. But you have to be emotionally equipped, ready to go. And apparently, in this conversation, this is what Biden said. He's not there yet.
If I were to announce to run, I have to be able to commit to all of you that I would be able to give it my whole heart and my whole soul. And right now, both are pretty well banged up, and we're trying to figure out that issue. That's the truth of the matter, and but believe me, I'm giving this a lot of thought and dealing internally in the family about how we do this.
Tough decision. That phone call was to the DNC, and there were numerous people that were listening. John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine, joins us today. John, good to have you with us.
It's great to be with you, Ed, as always.
I mean, that was the real Joe Biden. That was the unvarnished situation right there coming out. Mm-hmm. This is a real tough decision. If I was a betting man, I'd say that he isn't going to run based on that. But clearly, this is weighing heavy on his heart and his mind, and certainly with his family. What's your take on that soundbite and what Biden is thinking right now, from what you know?
Sure, I think that is the Joe Biden that I have experienced in many years of covering him. He's actually one of the more frank and open people in politics, and I have known a lot of people that are pretty open. So it's not that this is unheard of, but Biden usually tells you where he's at. And I think that's part of how it works for him. I would suggest to you that, A, his family means the world to him, as it does, I think, for anybody. I don't think we should deny that. But in Biden's case, a part of what has made it possible for him to have this amazing public life now for the better part of 50 years is his absolute commitment to his family, to his kids, to his wife, and to his sister, and to all these relatives. From what I understand, he's been gathering them together, as well as his extended family and people who've been close to him for many, many years. And they are literally sitting around, or they have sat around, and talked a lot about this precise thing. Can they pivot out of what for them is one of the most devastating moments, and they've had too many devastating moments in that family, into a very public candidacy? And I don't think we can begin to guess where that's going to turn out, because Joe Biden has wrestled with these issues before. Remember, when he was elected to the U.S. Senate back in 1972, he suffered a horrible loss. His wife killed, his sons horribly injured in an accident. And he was ready to not join the Senate. He was ready not to do it. Some older senators talked him into it, literally said, don't quit. Join the Senate. We'll back you up for this time. You can go home to your kids every night. We'll make this work. And they did. They made it work, and his Senate career extends from that moment. So this is a guy who does know that you can come out of terrible trauma and not just survive, but do what I think he believes to be great things.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt he could run the country. Yeah, there's no doubt that he could run the country. Okay, yeah. I think Hillary could run the country. I know Bernie Sanders could run the country. It's a question of who we want to have run the country. I'm sure Trump could in a different way too. But,
in a very different way.
I think there are some Republicans over there that certainly could not run the country and couldn't get the job done.
That's right.
But I do not believe for a moment that any type of uphill battle that Hillary Clinton is facing is weighing into this decision for Biden at all. The email scandal, Benghazi, whatever you want to throw out there about the Clintons, I think this is a Joe decision, and I think that he's won twice on a national ticket. He's certainly a tested, and I think a candidate that Democrats have confidence in. They haven't been burned by Joe Biden. And he is kind of sometimes a shoot from the hip guy. The press conference in which he told Obama this is a big effing deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
love that.
People did love it. They did love it. It was a very genuine moment.
And if I can just add, Ed, here at that precise thing, this is an important part of this as regards Biden. His kind of outspoken nature, his willingness to go beyond the lines, his frequent this thing that some of the right criticizes him for saying things that are, not, perfectly precise or, not exactly what you should say in every moment. Aren't we learning from the Trump experience that America kind of likes some of that, or at least a portion of it?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no doubt.
So Biden, in a sense, what some of our sillier right-wing friends condemn or criticize about Biden might actually be one of his strengths in this moment. A guy who actually speaks from the heart and says what he thinks.
All right, let's talk about Hillary Clinton. And the email story will not go away. It's become somewhat of an act of contrition for her on the campaign trail. In Iowa yesterday, she talked about the personal email that she had with the State Department, and again admitted it probably wasn't the right thing to do.
Well, I know people have raised questions about my email use as Secretary of State, and I understand why. I get it. So here's what I want the American people to know. My use of personal email was allowed by the State Department. It clearly wasn't the best choice. I should have used two emails, one personal, one for work, and I take responsibility for that decision.
What is taking responsibility? That's the big question. She goes on to talk about transparency.
And I want to be as transparent as possible, which is why I turned over 55,000 pages, why I've turned over my server, why I've agreed to, in fact, been asking to, and have finally gotten a date to testify before a congressional committee in October. And I'm confident that this process will prove that I never sent nor received any email that was marked classified.
But she is being investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And there are reports out there by McClatchy News Service that some of these emails are classified. Now, how classified, how, deep in detail do they go? No one knows at this point. But clearly, we're going to find out more than what we know right now. How is she playing this, John? Your thoughts?
Precisely wrong. I want to strongly say precisely wrong. That first answer that you played there, it sounded so defensive, so almost tortured. I had permission to do this. I didn't, come on. If she believes, and I think she does, that she followed the rules, she did her best job, then she ought to say that. She ought to just say, look, we're in a new age of communications. There's all sorts of new ways that we communicate through our phones, through, all sorts of devices that we didn't even have 20, 25 years ago in the way that we communicate now. When I took this job, I talked to people at the State Department about ways to communicate. We set up systems to communicate. I used them. I always followed the rules. I was try to be very precise about it. I'm glad to talk about it to the committee, but come on, people. This is, I talked to them. I did what they said was the right way to do it. And, at some point, you go to and do your job. You don't fret about, all these devices and things. And I would close off, frankly, by saying, look, and I had the Secret Service with me every day. And so they watch to make sure that you're doing the right thing, not to police you, but to make sure you're safe, to make sure you're not endangering yourself or others. And so I think if she would say it like that in a very, not exasperated, but strong way, it would be so much better. The apology tour, in my opinion, doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, the politics of this now, we're not really sure if this is going to peel away anybody. She still leads by a sizable margin, I think 18% on a national level. She is struggling in New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders, in a number of polls, is leading her there, and closing in Iowa. Who knows what a Biden announcement would do? Personally, I don't think that anybody supporting Bernie Sanders would peel off and go to Joe Biden. There are the same differences between Biden and the same differences between Sanders and Clinton as there are between Biden and Sanders. When you talk about breaking up the banks, when you're talking about a taxation system that's going to hold corporations accountable, when you talk about universal health care, all these things, and Wall Street accountability, I really think that there is a real difference still, and I think Biden would be far more like Clinton than like Sanders, and I think it would peel away. And if Biden does decide to go, I think it's a benefit to Sanders' camp. What's your take on it?
Well, I think that you just said a lot of important stuff here. First off, let's begin with that core concept. Hillary Clinton is not in as much trouble as a lot of our, kind of horse race media would tend to suggest. Her poll numbers around the country remain strikingly strong. Yes, she's got a challenge in New Hampshire, and there is simply no question. This week I saw some Bernie Sanders rallies up there. They were drawing huge crowds. I mean, he is clearly doing something in New Hampshire. He's about to move a lot of people into Iowa, do more work there. And I think there's something real about this Sanders candidacy that cannot be denied. By the same token, Clinton still has a dramatic lead, and especially in some of that next tier of contests. So, to my mind, this notion that Hillary Clinton's in crisis, bad way to begin. Let's instead look at the fact that it's actually rather early in this race. We haven't even had a debate yet. I think that when the debates begin, there is a reality that Bernie Sanders is going to do very, very well in those debates. People are going to be impressed by him. Hillary Clinton is going to have to rise to her best. I think she has that ability in her. You'll see a little bit of traction for Martin O'Malley because he's finally going to get some attention. But if Biden were to intervene in this setting, into this situation, he would grab an immense amount of attention at the pivot point from the early stage of the race to when it goes sort of critical. Mm-hmm. And that attention that he grabs, I would suggest, would be particularly significant for Hillary Clinton. Whether she loses support to him, that remains to be seen. But the fact of the matter is, if you're the front runner and someone steps in and grabs a lot of the limelight, that isn't good for you. That's not what you want to have happen at the point when casual folks are starting to focus on the race.
Yeah.
So I do think that Biden is, not because Hillary Clinton's necessarily weak, but just because of the timing. If Biden comes in, that is a real challenge for her, I believe.
All right. John Nichols, tell me about Bobfest. I'm going to be there, I think it's on the third Saturday in Wisconsin.
You're going to love it, brother.
Third Saturday in September in Wisconsin. Bobfest, I've been invited. So I get to get up and say whatever I want. That could be kind of dangerous, but whatever. I'm looking forward to it.
You're going to have the time of your life, brother. It's, Jim Hightower, the Texas populist, will be there. Mark Dimenstein, the head of the Postal Workers Union. Congressman Mark Pocan, a frequent guest on your shows.
Sure.
It's what it is, truthfully, is a remarkable annual event in Wisconsin where thousands of people come out, and they make no apologies for the fact that they're progressives, that they believe in economic fairness and so many other good things, rooted back to Fighting Bob LaFollette, the great progressive senator from the state, remember, in the past.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and if they give me the microphone, I don't know what we might end the next day or the next evening or something. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to it.
Well, let me just tell you one last thing here, if I can. Jesse Jackson spoke at it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He got so excited, I thought for a moment he was going to do a stage dive into the crowd.
There you go.
So maybe you'll do that.
All right. John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine, with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Now this. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. To continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems.
Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
This next story on Ed Schultz News and Commentary is about parents who care. It's about a community that is torn, and it's about money. It's into the bullseye of decision-making process on what we do about public education in this country. Are we going to resource every community? Are we going to do what we have to do to make sure that every American, every school child gets an opportunity to advance in our system? Now, the funding for schools comes from state and local, most of it, okay? No Child Left Behind ripped off the scab and proved that the federal money doesn't always show up. What we have unfolding in the city of Chicago is really unprecedented. There are a number of parents who are now on a 10-day hunger strike. This has gotten very little national attention. They're on a hunger strike because a school, Diet High School in Bronzeville, is going to be closed, and they don't agree with it, to the point where they're on a hunger strike. There have been numerous demonstrations surrounding the decision-making process by the members of the Chicago Board of Education, who have voted to pass a fiscal year 2016 budget, which calls for another $200 million in cuts. Look, if we're not committed to neighborhoods, then what are we committed to? This was never a fight in America in yesteryear. But because of the money and because of our funding process, it has become a fight. How do you raise property taxes when you have low-income neighborhoods trying to survive with their school system and get resourced properly? How do you do that? You can't. And the resources have got to come from the outside. And the fact of the matter is Chicago has been dealing with budget deficits for a long time. And I've said, I've been on record for years saying that federal money needs to be put into this system more so than other schools. Chicago's problem is more than unique. And the neighborhoods are going through a transformation that is just too fast for people to financially keep up. So I'm joined today with a couple of people who are very, very close to this story, obviously. Jeanette Taylor-Ramann. She is a member of the local school council at Mollison Elementary on Chicago's South Side. She is one of the 12 parents and community members on a hunger strike to keep open the last open enrollment high school in Bronzeville. Jeanette, good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Where are you right now, and what is your situation?
I'm in the hospital. I was kept overnight for observation. I passed out at a CPS board meeting. I don't remember much of what happened after me speaking, and so I was rushed to Northwestern Hospital, and I'm here waiting for the doctors to tell me what's the results of an MRI I took yesterday and when they're going to release me to come home.
And you are one of the 12 parents on the hunger strike. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why are you doing this?
Correct. Because I've done everything that Chicago Public Schools has asked me to do. I've been on the local school council since I was 19. I'm 40. I participated in numerous forums that they have, even jumped through the hoops of them in the RFP process being part of the writing team for Diet Global Leadership and Green Technology. But Chicago Public Schools doesn't honor its own request. And so after they canceled a meeting on August 10th, that was it. The line had been drawn in the sand. Enough is enough. You can't continue to ignore low-income and working families. And so decided with 11 other brave people to go on a hunger strike.
So that capsulizes what's going on. They are ignoring and not funding low-income neighborhoods for public education. Is that it?
That's correct. Really low-income families. Because in the 4th Ward where Diet sits, Hyde Park is part of the 4th Ward, but those parents are in Hyde Park. And so our Alderman, Will Burns, who does not care about low-income working families, he honors those families in Hyde Park, but ignores the families in Kenwood, Oakland, and Bronzeville.
So there's an injustice being played out here to the point where parents have gone on a hunger strike to get attention.
That's correct. We went to jail. This is not the first thing we've done. We went to jail several times. We've sat at the mayor's office. We've done everything that we think we could do. And the hunger strike was the last straw to show our young people that they are vital and there are people who love them. And so I'm in the hospital. I'm still not taking food. The only thing I'm still drinking is water and some juice. The hunger strike does not stop because I'm in hospital.
Jeanette, people, at least in past news experience, people that go on a hunger strike are willing to die for the issue. Are you willing to die for this issue?
I'm willing to die. My kids need to know that somebody loves them. One of the reasons why the crime rate is so high in Chicago is because we don't protect our young people. This generation is not lost. It's been neglected. And so there are not enough people doing what I'm doing, but I want to show people around the world that it's somebody who cares for these young people. I'm willing to die. I said that the very first day. When I leave this hospital today, I'm going home to get some rest, and I will be right back out there tomorrow on a hunger strike. I am still refusing to eat. These young people need this school. Education is the key to everything. And if they don't get it, we're going to have a bunch of kids who rob and steal just to live. And that's not fair to them. What is the American dream? For me and my young people, it's just to be educated. And I thought education was a human right.
Education is a human right in America, and that's how it's got to be viewed. But right now it's being viewed as just a line item budget. And if you don't have the money, then they're going to exclude kids. They're going to pick and choose neighborhoods. And that's exactly what they're doing, and it's wrong. It's not American. It's against everything we've ever believed in to make this country great. And I think that there is also a race element involved in all of this. Jeanette Taylor-Ramann.
Definitely is.
Jeanette Taylor-Ramann, I appreciate it. I'll be back in touch with you. We're going to follow this story. You keep the faith, and hopefully things will work out. I appreciate your time here. Thanks so much. I want to turn now to Jesse Sharkey, who is the Vice President of the Chicago Teachers Union. Jesse, good to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary.
Thanks for having me on.
What do you make of Jeanette?
She's incredible, a courageous leader in the community who's an inspiration to us all, and they have our full support.
What's the solution here? Money?
One of the issues is just that we have an appointed school board, which the mayor appoints, and we're afraid that they just want to give that school to a charter school, and that's part of what's going on. This is about run-of-the-mill privatization and cronyism. CPS has a long history of ignoring community demands. They did it when they closed 50 schools in 2013, and back in 2001, it took a group of neighborhood activists, 19-day hunger strike to win a school in a Latino neighborhood. So we're afraid that this is sort of a par for the course at CPS.
So you said something very important at the very top of that answer, is that this is an appointed board. They're not elected by the community. They're appointed by the mayor. We all know what Rahm Emanuel's all about, and his idea of revolutionizing education in this country is going to leave a lot of kids behind. It's going to pick and choose neighborhoods. This is unprecedented, that you have got a number of parents on a hunger strike. What's the conclusion here? Do you think this is going to move the decision makers at all?
I think the problem right now is the decision makers are really dug in behind their agenda. So when you mentioned earlier about the context of financial crisis, that's really true. They passed a budget which not only has $200 million of cuts, at the same time that they just got done handing over $200 million of interest rate, auction rate bond swap profits to the Bank of America. I mean, literally, the windfall profits to the banks from these high-risk financial deals that they've been doing are greater than the cuts. So they're making these cuts, and then the budget has another $500 million worth of cuts on top of that, unless they roll the dice and get lucky down in Springfield by taking money out of the pensions. So they built themselves a real mess, and it's the only way you can push that through is if you don't have democratic accountability. You've got corporate control, and that's at the root of it.
That is the root of it. And so it can be twofold for them. Number one, they can get the charter schools. Number two, they can destroy the union by going after the pensions. And that's what's happening.
That's what's happening.
God. Jesse Sharkey, keep up the fight. We're going to stay on this story. I don't know why it hasn't gotten more national attention, but if it's going to happen in Chicago, it's going to be the model for other big cities across this country, and it will revolutionize public education. It will pick and choose neighborhoods, and it will pick and choose what kids are going to have an opportunity and what kids are not going to have an opportunity. That's not the country I grew up in, and I don't think it's the country that we want to manage in the future.
That's right.
Good to have you with us, Jesse. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Commentary coming up on what unfolded in the state of Virginia yesterday when 2 journalists were shot and killed while doing their job. That's next. Stay with us.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Another one of those stories that, well, I guess it could happen. We don't think it is, but it did. As we were recording yesterday, a story was unfolding in Virginia that 2 innocent Americans, young journalists, 24 and 27 years old, were ambushed, executed, murdered. It was racially motivated. The backdrop of it all, the foundation of it all, was mental illness. And now the gun debate is front and center again in America, to the point where the President of the United States responded to it. I don't know how parents who lose kids deal with something like this. This is so horribly unnecessary. And I don't know if we as a society have a solution. I don't know. I don't know if a solution is achievable at this point. It's just something that we unfortunately have to live with in America, and it involves so many facets of our society: how we bring up our kids, how we make our families think about others, how we influence decisions, how we handle mental illness, how we deal with people who are struggling with issues. And I think the information age has just put us into the fast lane of not being able to catch up with a lot of these issues that are confronting us in society. Everybody in their working career, I believe, comes across an employee who's pissed off, or has some issues. And this incident that unfolded in Roanoke, Virginia yesterday that took the life of a 24-year-old girl and a 27-year-old man is going to make us reinforce the thought process that anything can happen at any time and we're never safe anywhere. And I just can't imagine what the families are going through right now, having to deal with this, how senseless it is and how horrible it is. And you can say, well, justice was done, is that the person who committed this act is now gone. That doesn't make it any easier or any better. And I think that there's a lot of people in this country right now that don't know where to turn to get a solution. But it does bring us back to the gun debate. But the painful loss, and every manager in every building in this country today in a workplace is thinking about who's working for them, how they're being managed, looking for signs, and trying to cope with the possibility of that happening in their workplace. And it's, my God, what you wonder what is going on out there. This is the manager of the television station in Roanoke, WDBJ, Jeff Marks, the general manager, responding to the loss of two of his employees.
If I walked into the office in the morning and the first person I saw was either Adam or Allison, I got a smile on my face because they were always that way. And I never saw them down. Adam just would do any job that was asked of him. He was a lovable person, but he was really good at what he did.
How about Allison? 24 years old. What kind of reporter was she?
She was a good reporter, and she was going to be a great reporter. Maybe a national news anchor, I don't know. But she had so much in front of her that was possible because she was quick and smart and worked hard. And that's the kind of person you want.
Every manager and every employee knows what Jeff Marks is saying, because we all know employees just like Allison. We all know employees just like that young photographer who was shot. And Adam Ward, a talented guy, Allison, a talented woman, and for no reason at all, they're just gone. So the gun debate. Terry McAuliffe, the governor of Virginia, was very involved and very quick to respond in the effort to apprehend the shooter yesterday. And he ended up on WTOP radio in Washington, D.C., talking about firearms.
Yeah, I've proposed this now twice to the General Assembly. I mean, I ran on the topic. It was part of my platform that we need tougher gun laws in the Commonwealth. I've advocated for background checks. Everyone who purchases a firearm in the Commonwealth of Virginia should have to go through a background check. A background check, as I say, I've done it 3 times. I own 3 hunting rifles and shotguns. I hunt. You go into the store, you hand your license over. It doesn't take, Mark, but 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes maximum. Everybody should go through that process. There are people who have been convicted of a dangerous crime, a violent crime, domestic abusers, stalkers. I mean, we can go through a whole list. There are certain people who should not be entitled to own a firearm. So I will continue to push it.
That's where 90% of America is post-Sandy Hook execution of little school children. We're still there. We're still having this debate. We can't get background checks. And the reason is the foundation of support is so strong from the National Rifle Association. It infiltrates our political structure on a national level, and you have people like Donald Trump taking this position.
You do something different with gun policy?
Well, I don't think I would, because this is really a sick person. This isn't a gun problem. This is a mental problem. And frankly, a case like this, he snuck up on him, whether it was a gun or a knife or whatever it would have been something. But, you're not going to get rid of all guns. So I know one thing. If you tried to do it, the bad guys would have them, to use an expression, and the good folks would abide by the law. They'd be hopeless, and it would be a hopeless situation for them. That is
NRA, National Rifle Association rhetoric. that if we were to institute some type of background checks or some type of registration, that only the bad guys would have the firearms. We don't know that for sure. And we don't know for sure that background checks would curb violence in this country. What we believe is that it will. Why don't we just give it a try? Why don't we've changed speed limits in this country. Some states still have 55 miles an hour. Some states have 75 miles an hour. Why don't we just try it? And if it saves lives after a 24-month survey of what's going on in America with gun violence, then maybe we should stay with it. If you have a bad law, get rid of it. But I think that we are clearly at a point in this country where we have got to institute background checks at the strictest level and make people verify that they are capable of owning and possessing a firearm. Can't we do that on a temporary basis to find out if it's going to curb gun violence? Are we good enough to do that? The NRA says we don't have to. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We're back tomorrow.